Well, welcome back to the True Man Podcast. You know, it is always a treat to have someone on the show that I've gotten to know a little bit. And this particular person, we seem to be traveling in the same circles these days. So welcome to the show today, Michel, or Coach Chris, as he's known. So Chris has over 30 years of sales and leadership experience, and he uses all of that great experience to help teach and train others through his company, Coach Chris Consulting. Welcome to the show today, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Mike. Thank you for having me. I got dizzy being in those circles all the time. So.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll slow it down and just enjoy the ride today. How about that? So
absolutely.
So listen, I had. I'm going to try to trip you up right out of the gate. So I'm preparing for the show,
okay.
Right? And I'm on social media last night.
I know where this is going, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
And so, you know, curiosity kicked in at that particular point. So explain cryotherapy to me, because I've seen this.
That was a twist. I wasn't ready for that one. You're right.
I'm actually really curious about cryotherapy. The facial, hey, listen, we're men on here. So I'm not, I'm going to leave that one alone. But tell me about cryotherapy. How did it feel? What was it like? Tell us about it.
All right. Well, first we got to do a shout out to Icebox in Midtown. And my girlfriend,
Atlanta.
Yeah, it's down Midtown Atlanta. Sorry. Yes. Thank you for those of you listening across the pond. Icebox does this thing called cryotherapy, and they use different machines for it. But in this particular one, they use nitrogen to you step into this. It's a small enclosure, really, and they basically reduce the air temperature to negative. In my case, was negative 171 degrees. Now, socks and shoes on, and or little slippers on, and gloves. Because your extremities, what happens when your heart or when your body gets super cold, what does it do? The blood rushes back to the important parts of your body, your brain, your heart, your lungs, and to the internal organs, right? That's it. It has to go back to that to take care of that, because you jump into survival mode. And what happens is it creates, with the blood doing its work, what happens is there's a lot of healing properties in that. And so, I had a very long is kind of a nice way of saying it. There'd been some things that had happened in the last couple of weeks that I'd been working on and working towards and trying to kind of wrap up. And they finished up on Wednesday, and it was successful, and it went well. And Thursday, I normally have a client meeting on Thursday mornings, and they decided to postpone. And I went, what can I do? And I thought, I need to just take care of me. And so my girlfriend works at this Icebox place, and she goes, you need to come and check it out. She kept telling me, can you come check it out? Well, I finally did. And I went and checked it out, and oh my gosh, it's just, it was worth it. Absolutely worth it. Yeah. And they do a great job. Now I have, yes, I had a facial. I have had 2, maybe 3 in my entire life. Now I'm in my mid 50s. And, as a man's man, that's not something, we grew up doing, but, I learned that was, it's just a way to take care of yourself. Talk about incredibly relaxing. Shout out to Solange. She did an amazing job with the facial. And I mean, she really did everything up right. And but there's all kinds of things that you can do. You can do spot treatments where they focus on a particular area. You can get into the machine where you just
get far too knowledgeable about this.
Hey, you know what? When you spend time doing it, you're gonna know.
All right, listen. Truth be told, Chris.
Yeah,
I had my monthly massage this morning. Okay.
Well, what I was going to say, Mike, is it really is worth it. I mean, bottom line is,
I agree.
It's all a part of just taking care of yourself, and that's one thing that I've really learned over the last several years is how to take care of myself and before it's too late, and not after you've had the breakdown or after you've mentally and physically exhausted yourself. But when you're still feeling good and maybe you've had a hard week and you just go, you know what? Time for me. I need to have time for me, because what I did learn, and I've heard throughout the years, I never really applied it, was if you don't take care of you, how in the world can you take care of other people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with everything you're saying. To this day, and I want to say it was like the fourth podcast we did. We did a podcast on building margin in your life, which is essentially taking care of yourself. Still the number one most listened to podcast. And I think that has to do with everything you're talking about, is people are curious how to, I mean, I kind of tongue in cheek was giving you a hard time.
Oh, I know. No,
knowing that I had my monthly massage this morning, because quite honestly, I have had to find ways. And I know you know this, you ex-athlete, your body at the age of 50 and over just kind of does not like the fact that you may have been an old athlete for whatever reason.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, I've part of the part of the whole cryo thing has been part of my health journey that I took and that I've really gotten into in the last several years. But it took me a while to figure it out, because I had shingles when I was 19. I had,
that's really early.
Yeah. I was at college. I was playing football and I walked into practice one day and I was itching and blistering and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I looked at the trainer and said, "What in the world is this?" And he goes, "You got shingles." And I went, "What?" Went to the doctor, confirmed. And I was 19, things going on with school, stress and, other things, and perpetuated it. But I got shingles when I was 19. I then also got and have been dealing with gout since I was in my early 30s. And so for me, this whole health journey, it had to take a twist, because I was tired of, to your point, I got tired of waking up and going, "What hurts today?" Because I used to do that. I literally would wake up and do a full body assessment, if you will. As I'm sitting on the edge of my bed every morning, I'd wake up and go, "Okay, what hurts today?" And that was the first question I asked when I woke up. And I got to the point where I said, I can't do that anymore. I just cannot do that anymore.
So what did you do to change it?
I started
cryotherapy.
No, actually, yesterday was my first opportunity to try cryo. Though, I mean, I'd been doing things when I was an athlete. I mean, we used to get into whirlpools that were full of ice, right? I mean, that was just part of it. It was the cold treatment, the warm treatment, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But no, a few years ago, I went and I went to my doctor. So I've lived in Atlanta since 2001. And I moved here literally a month before 9/11. And I never had allergies. Grew up outside of Chicago, lived in St. Louis for a number of years, moved to Atlanta and never had any allergies. And a couple of years ago, I went to my doctor and he did the panel test. Have you ever had a panel test done where they take 60 things and they prick you on the back, right, with the needles?
Had one done on Monday, as a matter of fact.
Oof. Of the 60 items they tested, 2 of them were neutral, right? They're just to see how your skin reacts. So of the 58 items that they tested, I was allergic to 56.
Oh, you beat me. I was 48.
Yeah. And I said, no, BS. And so they wanted to put me on a regimen of, okay, you got to come and get shots every 2 weeks. And all this. And I went, no. Something's not right. Cause I've never been allergic. And all of a sudden I'm allergic to everything. That doesn't make any sense. So that triggered me to go see a holistic doctor. And in July of 2019, I started seriously looking at my health, and they do some things that are not traditional. And what I found was that I stripped everything away. I went on a total elimination diet initially, just to kind of get back to basics, right? I wasn't feeding myself as much fruits and vegetables and raw food, if you will, that I could. I wasn't eating meat all the time. I wasn't, I wasn't doing crazy stuff, but I still was eating a lot of processed food. And what I learned was that I eliminated a lot of stuff. I did this total elimination diet for probably 3 or 4 months. And then I started slowly adding things back in. Now I am mostly plant-based and I am gluten-free. for the most part. Now, every once in a while, I'll have a pizza with, pepperoni and, I mean, and I'll have some meat, or I'll have, I'll do those kind of things. But that to me is more of a treat. And what I've learned, and the cool thing is I don't wake up without energy anymore. I don't wake up and do the full assessment. In fact, 90% of the time, 99% of the time I wake up and I feel great. And it's the rare day that I wake up and I go, oh, my knee hurts. Oh, my hand hurts. But knock on wood, I haven't had any serious bouts with gout in months, and it's just getting less and less, and it's getting less intense and less frequent. So, I mean, it's been a fantastic journey, and it's taught me a lot. And, doing things like cryotherapy, or I used to do massages once a month as well. And I mean, that kind of stuff is just, it's learning how to take care of you, right? And learning how to, that plays into not only your physical health, but now your mental health, right? And it starts getting 100%. Into what you need to do or be as a, from a mental standpoint.
Yeah. And you got to find what works for you. I'm a big believer in chiropractic care. I've been doing it for a number of years. And a number of years ago, I mixed in massage, and sometimes, especially now that I'm doing this podcast and I'm all hunched over, like I was going to say Stephen King, but he's the author.
No, he's the author. No.
Yeah.
Let's go with the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Let's go with that.
So I don't even know what's going on. So I got to go get the neck taken care of every once in a while. But I'm a big believer in that. You got to figure out what works for you. And boy, there are just so many different things out there, holistic nowadays. There's something for everybody. And I do think that's an important thing for a person to try to figure out, because it's going to help you be the man that you want to be, the salesperson that you want to be, the husband that you want to be. You got to find a way to take care of you. And that's critically important. Wow. That was a complete sidetrack that had not planned on, but that was really, really good. In fact, what I wanted to dig into a little bit is, if you get an opportunity to go out and check out some of Coach Chris's videos, which I would strongly encourage. He inspires me to go do it, which I do an incredibly poor job of spitting out on a weekly basis. But if you do see some of his videos, you may have hear him refer to the red chair, or you may even find him in the red chair. You may enjoy the red chair experience. And of course, why should we care about the red chair? Well, there's a story about the red chair, and we love story. So, we want to hear, what's the story behind the red chair?
Okay. Yeah.
I brought out a red Solo cup in honor of the red chair, by the way.
Red Solo cup. Anyway, gosh, what's the red chair? Well, the red chair is, it's a red leather recliner. And if you go to, if you've checked me out on social media, so my webpage, coachchrisconsulting.com, there's actually a page devoted strictly to the red chair. And but it came about because one of my business mentors for a long time was my stepfather, and Bill Roberts. He had this red leather recliner, and that was his chair when he came down into the living room and he was finished working for the day, or when he came home for the day. That's where he went and he sat, right? And Mike, you and I grew up in a time when that's where our fathers, our grandfathers, right? The kind of the men of that time and that era, that's what they did. They had a chair that they went and sat in, and this was his chair. So it was kind of a cool chair. And unfortunately, we lost him in 2016. And so my mom moved out of the DC area. She lived in and around Alexandria, and she moved away from the area. And with that, she took the red leather recliner, and she had held on to it to see if any of the kids wanted it. And my younger brother had some physical ailments with one of his hips. And so occasionally he had this recliner that he would lay in because he couldn't get comfortable in his own bed. And it made for a really hard way to sleep. He had to sleep a certain way. Well, his recliner was in total disrepair, needed to be replaced. Well, along comes the red chair, right? So I go and I pick it up from my mom's. I bring it over to my brother's in Indiana. And so he had it for a while. Unfortunately, we lost my younger brother in 2019, and he struggled with some issues of mental health. And because of that, we lost him to suicide in 2019, in September of 2019. And when I was there with the family and doing all the preparations and the burial and that kind of stuff, my sister-in-law pulled me aside one time and she said, "Do you want the red chair?" And I said, "Absolutely. I would take that and hold on to it." And she goes, "If the kids ever want it, would you mind?" I said, "I'll bring it back to them in a heartbeat." I said, "But I've got the perfect place for it. It'll sit in my ensuite. It'll be my place to go and sit." And knowing the two previous owners, I mean, that was, to me, was like, I got a treasure, right? I just found the Holy Grail. But what it became is that was, September, October of 2019. Well, then in March, April of 21 or 20, we get hit with the pandemic.
Yep.
And then a buddy of mine sends me a meme and says, "If you're not working on your side hustle, if you're not improving yourself, if you're not doing something to improve or get better during this pandemic, you're wasting your time."
Yeah.
And that really hit home for me because I always wanted to write a book. I had no idea what to write it about. And I'm reading these daily inspirational books. They're short. They're 500, 700 words, right? They're a couple of minute read, but it's inspirational kind of stuff. And it just inspired me. And I thought, you know what, that's what I want to do. I'm going to write a book like that. And that's what I did. I wrote a book about the red chair experience. And so I would sit in my red leather recliner most mornings, and that's where I would write. And that's where probably, 60, 70% of the book was written, was in that chair.
How do you feel like knowing, that chair belonged to your brother, your dad? How did sitting in that chair inspire you? Did you feel it when you were writing? Were they there along for the ride with you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've got, I jokingly say that I sometimes will have conversations with the previous owners in that chair. And because there's something about that chair, right? They took pictures of the chair, right, for the book. And, and what's interesting to me is you see the creases, you see the character that's part of that chair.
Patina.
I'm not the only one that made those indentations, right? I'm not the only one that helped build the character of that chair. And I just happen to be the most recent owner of it. But yeah, I mean, that it's having something like that. I mean, if you've ever sat in a piece of furniture that's been around for a long time, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, my grandmother had a horsehair couch that was passed down through generations in her family. And there was something about sitting in that couch, right, that just, you could feel something different when you were sitting in it.
Yeah.
Right?
It was built to last, unlike a lot of things nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Listen, I think that stuff is so important. Right next to my desk, of course, nobody here can see this, is a set of golf clubs that belong to my grandfather. I did have them cleaned.
Good.
But other than that, they're in the original condition, and so you look at the grips, you can see where he placed his hands, and it's just really a cool thing. It's also pretty neat to see how far we've come from a technology perspective in the golf world. But it's pretty cool. So I've never done this before. So this is my shout out to Aunt Sally, Aunt Mary, Uncle Don, and you guys, the golf clubs are being well taken care of, just so you know. And I have my dad's a tractor collection that when they moved, and those are important, I think, for us to have around.
Absolutely.
And they really honor the family and your heritage. And I love the story.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
the story behind that.
Yeah, and it's cool to be able to tell the stories behind it, right? I mean, that's the catalyst for the book, and it becomes the catalyst for a number of conversations. I mean, you got to meet a friend of mine the other day, who's now a friend of yours, Elaine Lindsay, and
Yeah.
being able to have conversations with her about, you know, some of the journeys she's had, and some of the people she meets. And you know, I'm part of this thing called Pick My Brain, and on pickmybrain.com, and it's an amazing thing to be a part of, because you get to meet people from all over the world. And one of the conversations I had was with a woman named Yoka. And Yoka is an 81-year-old woman who survived all kinds of stuff, and just having a conversation with her, right? One of the things I told my kids when they were younger, and their grandparents and great grandparents were still available, I said, do yourself a favor and have a conversation with them. Ask them about when they grew up, and ask them what it was like, you know, doing going to school, or doing things with their family or their friends, or that kind of stuff. And it's fun to have those conversations, and I look forward to that, you know, with my grandkids, or you
Yeah.
know, heaven forbid it, or heaven help me if I can last that long to have, you know, great grandkids. But you know, to have those conversations, you know, and I hope my kids and their kids and their kids are curious, right? And they want to learn about history. My oldest daughter, was writing a paper one time on the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King in 1960s and what that was like. And I said, you know, who would know about that is my parents. I said, my dad grew up in Chicago. He was in Chicago. In fact, we were in Chicago in 1968 when the riots were happening. Right. And I said, you want to talk about things that were going on. And my parents grew up around Nashville, Tennessee. And so they were right in the thick of things. You know, you watch movies like the Green Card, and, you know, you see things like that, and you're like, wow, I mean, that was real. And those times were real. And then you see and talk to people who are around those times. It's pretty cool. So,
yeah. So listen, you know, we mentioned the book, we've mentioned, you know, the red chair.
Checking things off here. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about this upcoming book that has really kind of spun out of this chair. So tell us about the book.
Yeah. Well, the book is a daily inspiration for success in life and business. And it's called The Red Chair Experience. And you should be able to find it if you go to theredchairexperience.com, or you can go to my webpage, coachchrisconsulting.com, and you'll see there's a red chair page there. But and you can get the book there, and you should find out all the insights.
I'm holding off for the book signing.
And I'm sure it'll be something like that. Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be at a brewery down in Marietta Square, right?
It very well could be. It very well could be. Yes, coming to a brewery near you, right? Or a distillery, right?
I'll take either.
That's right. I'll go back to Kentucky for that. Absolutely. But yeah, well, as we're doing this, obviously this is going to be, we're just still weeks away from it being released, but it should be released very shortly. And by the time this podcast is released, I would imagine it will be available. And like I said, go to theredchairexperience.com and you can find out about it. But it's just a daily book for you to read and get some inspiration or motivation for your life or your business. And it really is something you can share with other people. It's designed to be a quick read. It's something inspirational. It was, and it still is for me. I mean, I read it every day still. I actually do. I read that as one of the books that I read every morning, and I read it as if I didn't write it, but it's interesting. It's a lot of fun.
What was your favorite part of your process about writing the book?
Finishing it.
Why does everybody say that? You're not supposed to tell me that because I'm at the very beginning.
No. Trust me. When you finish, part of it was pretty interesting in the beginning, right? And starting the journey for me, that was like, wow, I'm writing a book, right? And then you get about halfway through, and you're like, holy crap, do I really want to do this? And I mean, I wrote a book that's designed for 366 days, right? I mean, you take the leap year into account. So there's 366 entries that I'm writing. And so it literally became one of these things where I'm having to go and put together something for 366 different things. It's not the same as writing a chapter, right? But there's kind of like 366 different chapters. And so it's, what was interesting was, I mean, you start writing and then you get inspired and you think about this story. Well, I found a couple of places where I had written the same story, 2 different places or 3 different places. And I tried to, make sure that I didn't duplicate titles or duplicate a quote. And I found one quote that I actually used twice. And, I mean, that kind of stuff. But the really cool part of it, it really was when I finished writing it in November of 21, I remember this just big sense of relief of, okay, that's done. And then I went, oh crap, now I have to publish it, right? Because it's not enough for me to write it. The idea was to publish it. And do I want to self-publish? Do I talk to a publisher? How do I do this? And what does it look like? And I thought, I do not want to mess with this anymore. So who can I get involved and how do I get, somebody who can help me publish this? And I'm working with a great publisher that I get to keep all the rights and they're going to help me set everything up. They're fantastic. They're a guy named Dominic Damaski and Motivation Champs. They do a really good job with publishing and they help people out. And if you want to self-publish, you can do it. He'll help you figure that out too. But there's a lot of really good folks out there that can help you do all that kind of stuff. And but that was it. Yeah.
And encourage you and inspire you because it takes a team to get behind you. I'm already finding that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even be considering the whole book thing without a couple of people jumping in and literally pulling me by the belt going, oh, you're going to do this and you're going to do it in 90 to 120 days, as a matter of fact,
right?
When you're going to do it. And actually, when I heard that, in fact, it just happened again. I could actually feel my palms getting sweaty. I was like, "Oh, are you
here we go.
For real? Yeah. For real?" So, was there a favorite part of the book? Was there something in there, or a good something?
Gosh, yeah, there actually is. One of my favorite quotes that I found was I found it. Let me see if I can remember it real quick. It's called "When You Survive This," and it's a quote by a man named I'm going to butcher his last name. So Peter, please forgive me. His name is Peter Shayakowski, and the quote that I pulled, it's actually a short story. He writes short stories, but this was a quote. It was, when you survive this, it will not be because someone said you could, although it's good to be reminded from time to time. And when you survive this, it will not be because you had money in the bank or a roof over your head, because there may come a time when you have neither, and still you will survive this. And man, when I read that, that inspired me, and it just made me appreciate everything that I have, everything that I've seen. I have a ton of life experience, and I don't think I'm that old. My kids
it happens quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to a book today by Dick Van Dyke, and when he wrote it, he was 89 years old. Well, that was 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, that he wrote that. And so it's been a minute, but and he's like talking about how he doesn't want to get old. And I think about this, I think I'm not that old, but I've had a lot of life experience, which is really cool, right? I mean, we got to see a lot of things. I got to do a lot of things. You mentioned it. I got to play college football at a major university. I walked on.
Well, that's debatable.
Yeah, right. Illinois is a major university. ILL, buddy. ILL.
It's debatable.
Yeah. but that's okay. You probably went to a smaller, lesser known university. And
All
that's
right,
okay.
let's cut it out right now.
Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. This
No,
is
I
going to
just
get,
like to give Illinois people a hard time because I grew up in Iowa.
that's
So
okay. That's again, lesser known school, not as well versed in,
oh
no,
boy. Yeah.
it's another Big Ten school. I love it. But I was blessed to have the skills and abilities to do that and to
Yeah.
walk on and to
Yeah.
letter and I played in the Peach Bowl. And I mean, I got to see things, and I've traveled to almost all 50 states, and I've been to almost all the provinces in Canada. I've gotten to go to Mexico and China, and I mean, I've gotten to do some things. Now there's still some things I'd love to do, but then you couple that with 30 years of sales experience and being in the corporate world and now owning my own business. I mean, there's just a lot going on. And the thing is we all have a story, right? We all have something that we can share. And that's why I do pick my brain. I mean, that's why I'm a part of that community, is because it's all about telling your story, and it's all about sharing it with other people from around the world.
Well, and listen, it's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, because it became pretty clear to me, or evident, and you can walk in, I'm just going to say doctor's office, although it's you're 6 feet apart from everybody now. That is, if they even let anybody in the doctor's office. I was the only one in the doctor's office the other day. I thought, oh my God, come on, people.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, it used to be you could go in a crowded room everywhere, and you walk in, and what's everybody doing? I mean, they got their face planted on their phone, and it didn't used to be like that. And my fear is, quite honestly, is that these stories, whether it be family or whatever, they're not being handed down anymore. I mean, a story to the average person nowadays is whatever the latest video is on TikTok, I think. You know?
Well, that's where stories are getting shared nowadays, which is, it's kind of cool, but it's kind of sad, because you're right. The communication, the connection is not there.
It's the connection more than anything, I think. Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It really becomes this connection, and you don't have that. I'm one of those people that needs that FaceTime. I need to have that interaction with somebody, right? Because if I don't have that, then I miss out, and they miss out, and we all miss out on that connection. And so that's the real struggle with don't get me wrong. I mean, I have to put things out on TikTok. I have to put things out on Instagram, right? I put together reels, and it's why, you were scrolling late last night and found my story about the
here I am hammering phones, and I got caught red-handed checking out of Listen, we're all addicted to it one way or another, and I agree with you. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think if this pandemic has taught us anything, at least I would hope it has for me. I mean, yes, I'm doing a tremendous amount of business and meeting people online. It's almost exclusive at this point, which I didn't intend for it to be, but it's really taken on a life of its own. But if there is one thing that I really miss right now, it's the ability, more often than not, to be out in front of people, and being belly to belly and eyeball to eyeball, and being in a room full of people. I think that's critically important. I also think, and I'm going to say specifically for men, because I always assume that to be the largest part of my audience, if not exclusively, for some strange reason. But men have a tendency to isolate themselves in the first place.
Absolutely.
And that creates a whole set of other challenges. And so I think that, finding ways, and I probably say this every podcast, finding ways for men to figure out how to be in community and learning from other sage men like yourself is critically important to being a well-rounded man.
Absolutely.
And that's how I define masculinity.
Yeah.
Some people don't.
Yeah.
But.
Well, it's interesting, Mike, because I grew up in a single parent household with my dad and my two brothers, an older and a younger brother. I'm a middle child. Emotions were not something we talked about. Emotions were not something we displayed. Emotions were not, I mean, my dad, I don't recall, and God love him, my dad passed away a year ago, but my dad was not one to say, I love you. And in fact, that didn't happen until much later in my life that my dad said that. Right. And I made sure, I wanted to be the difference for my kids. I wanted to let my kids know. I want my kids to know all the time whenever I see them. I mean, they probably get tired of me saying it, but I want them to know I care about them. I love them. And I want to see them succeed, and I want them to do well. But, growing up in that environment, and then for years struggling with the emotions and trying to figure all that stuff out. And I know that that's what people struggle with. I mean, we're hearing, Mike, we talked about this before. We're in a time where we are being forced to have these conversations, these emotional conversations, because of the pandemic, because of mindfulness, because of everything that's going on. We have to talk about it, because it's being put in our face, right? And so, and in a good way, in a bad way, right? I mean, we're in a sense, we're kind of being forced to step into the light and say, hey, it's time to talk about this, and it's okay to talk about it, right? I mean, we see an Olympic athlete step away and say, you know what, I can't participate because my mental health is not right. And we go, oh my gosh, somebody on the big stage did it. Well, guess what? We all get the chance to do that, whether we're on the big stage or not. Right. And being able to have a candid conversation, about just something as simple as, man, I'm just not feeling well. I just feel a little bit off today. And I was talking to a buddy on Monday about that very thing. I, was over at his house, and we were having dinner, and I just said, man, I need to be honest with you. I'm feeling blah, right? I'm feeling this way. And we had a good conversation. But 20 years ago, that wasn't the conversation. 30 years ago, that wasn't the conversation.
No. Well,
right?
Listen, we were just talking about this. I struggling a little bit with allergies, which are already kicking in a little earlier than they normally do for me. Just I'm a little further south, and it kicked in, and I didn't have any of the drugs around that I had normally take. And I'll tell you, the last week's been rough. And really, one of the things that it's caused to happen, I'm not sleeping well, which then causes your focus to be off. And so I've been finding over the last week, despite my stellar performance on today's podcast,
hard-hitting questions there, Mike. Good job.
That it's really like I'll be in the middle of something, and all of a sudden my mind just goes, and it's like I'm on fumes. But it used to be, I think, a little bit more of 20 years ago, like because we grew up about the same time. So if you're at a ball game and you fell down, and especially if you were a guy, and the funny phrase was always like, a real ball player never says ouch, right? Just wipe it, rub it out.
Rub a little dirt in it and move on.
Rub it out. Come on, man. Yeah. And so, the funny part about that, when I reflect on it, first, I find it a little funny now, but that stuff has a really weird way of getting in your unconscious brain and sitting in there. And, I got to tell you, I've struggled with that from time to time, because, my go-to, would be, almost instantly, if I saw a kid fall down.
Mike, suck it up.
Yeah, just suck it up. Man,
I mean, that's what we were told.
Well, I had a conversation really early on, and there was conversation around, what was the podcast name? And then somebody said, well, threw out the phrase "man up." Oh, wow. Now that is you want to talk about a phrase that has all kinds of potential pitfalls. Now, I got to be careful here. There are some organizations out there called Man Up, but if you really start peeling back the onion and you want to piss some people off, just tell somebody to man up in this day and age. And so hence True Man. How about that?
There you go. Good job.
We stayed out of the fray on that.
You got out of the woods on that one. No, but you're right. I mean, it's unfortunately we've had this when we were growing up. We had this mentality that boys don't cry, we don't share emotions, and we just kind of man up or just suck it up and you'll be fine. And what we're learning and what we're seeing is the residual effects of that is, and I think Simon Sinek said it from a leadership perspective. He said, "Be the leader that you wish you had." Right. And take that further. My girlfriend said this to me, and I love it when she gives me these insights. She said, "Be the parent that you always wanted." And we get the opportunity as we continue to grow up. And if we have families and we choose to have families, we get the opportunity to become that parent that we never had, or that we wanted, or that we desired to be, that we needed in our life. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You get the opportunity to change, if you will, the whole dynamic of what was going on and how things grew up. So,
and have the conversation. Hence,
absolutely.
That's exactly why I'm doing the podcast. In all honesty, I mean, I get a lot of advice on what I should or shouldn't do, but this is exactly right, because it's what happens when you're not entrepreneur. This is exactly what we should be doing. We should be introducing people to the conversation, because quite honestly, there are people out there that have had a fatherless environment, or their father wasn't present, or, they just have had wounding in their life that they don't know to have these conversations. And but it is okay. And it's just why I always encourage people to go seek out people to have, or groups to have these conversations, because they are appropriate and they should happen. And it really creates a much happier environment overall. I mean, I feel better about having these conversations. I literally get off every podcast, probably except this one. And of
course.
No, it's excellent. You're an excellent guest. I literally get off every podcast and I think, wow, that was a great conversation, because we just don't have these conversations frequently enough. And I consider them so intimate, and it's just such a great way to be curious with somebody else and learn from them. And it really inspires me. And so Chris, you've inspired me today, and I appreciated learning more about the red chair and your unfortunate journey through the University of Illinois football. And go Hawks. Okay. Oh, he's silent.
No, I'm being kind. I'm letting it go, but thank you. Thank you for having me on the show today, Mike.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Chris, tell us again, how can we find the book? How can people find you and get engaged? Because writing a book is no small task, and I'm excited to get my hands on this. So how can they find you? How can they find the book again?
Sure. The best way, I mean, you know this because you are a digital business card holder yourself. You can text Coach Chris, all one word. So Coach Chris all together to 21,000. You get my digital business card. All my contact information is on there, but you can also find me on coachchrisconsulting.com. And like I said, the redchairexperience.com will be the landing page, if you will, for the book. That is the name of the book, The Red Chair Experience. It's daily inspiration for success in life and business, and that'll be coming out shortly. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on my webpage. There's all kinds of places you can find it. If you want a signed copy, you can go to my webpage, and there'll be a place for you to check that box and say, yeah, I'd like a signed copy, and we'll make that happen for you as well. But yeah, that's probably the easiest way to reach me and find me.
Cool. And we'll put that in the show notes so you can find Chris. Well, Chris, thanks a lot for being on the show today. Absolutely enjoyed having you. Take care.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right.